Okay, our next video is making a Soulslike with no experience. Let's see.
The founding fathers and peak of the Souls genre. And a couple weeks ago, I had finally completed this series with Bloodborne as my last game. But since then, I've taken a break from the genre. Though anytime I play something else, I think to myself, I could be out there killing a few beasts.
I actually tried to play Bloodborne. I think Bloodborne was actually my first Souls game. Before, I didn't even know what a Souls game was. I just played it, but I didn't even get past like the first, like the beginning part, because I didn't know what to do.
These games are just peak in so many ways, but I don't have to tell you that. Everyone and their dog knows that. So to show my appreciation, what if I make something similar? I've always wondered how video games were made, but never acted upon it. Until now. When making a game, you're going to want to choose a game engine. Because I have zero experience in game development, I should probably pick something lightweight and easy to get. I went with Unreal Engine, the game engine used by AAA studios. I started with the basics, how to maneuver around Unreal, moving objects, importing assets, learned about the collision and physics systems. Then it was on to making the game. I added this character who is just a metahuman, but with the lowest LOD. And it gives this kind of PS2 look, which I mess with. For a placeholder weapon, I used a large hunk of iron, too big to be called a sword. But my first big roadblock was that I had to make my own animations. I spent 2 weeks of my life just creating the most shit animations ever. Something simple as a walk cycle took me ages, and every time I tried to make it better, it just got worse and more disturbing. Eventually I scrapped up all the animations I needed, so
That's actually like, that's probably one of the like biggest things about doing stuff like this is you have to have lots of patience.
could finally start adding some functionality. In Unreal, you can be a nerd and use C++ or use Blueprints. Blueprints is coding without your brain wanting to get a lobotomy. So I gave Blueprints a try and I started to understand the basics of programming and OOP. I mainly use the documentation and some YouTube tutorials. A tip for anyone trying to learn game dev is if you're trying to implement something, try doing it yourself before watching how someone else does it. It might seem like a waste of time, but learning from my mistakes made me understand concepts much better. This got me pretty far and I successfully added all my shitty animations to the character. I now have a simple roll, a poorly animated attack combo, and I was gonna keep going, make some more animations, add a couple weapons, but I realized that this was just gonna be a Souls copy. I needed to innovate, and I started thinking, I like guns, and I also like cool weapons. I took the Bloodborne transform mechanic, slapped it on a shotgun and hammer, and now I can transform between the two. I did this by having two weapons on the same blueprint, and whenever they spawn in, they instantly attach. Then I just play a quick transform animation to detach or reattach the weapons, and it's actually really smooth to transform between the two, which is sick. For the art direction, I changed the sky color for aesthetic, and I really like the PS2 retro style a lot of modern games are going towards. So I copied a retro shader that adds some pixelation,
there's probably a lot of people who are really good at it, but
they just quit because they either didn't have the time, which a lot of older games use, but we will continue the art later. I also created a very bare bones inventory system so that I can add more weapons and other stuff later on. With the help of the documentation and some tutorials from Unreal themselves, it only took me 3 weeks to figure out. For the actual item pickups, I tried to replicate the item drop thing that all Souls games have. I achieved it by using this rocket thruster pack that I got for free. I still have no clue about particle systems, but I played around with the values until I got this. Then I just added a...
Actually, quick story time, okay? So nothing huge, right? But I took like art design classes, and I used Unreal Engine I made like a gun in Unreal Engine. So that's my achievement. That's my little achievement. So
this character who is just a metahuman but with the lowest LOD, and it gives this kind of PS2 look, which I mess with. For a placeholder
I said that earlier, he had a PS2 look. He looks like a PS2 character.
But my first big roadblock was that I had to make my own animations. I spent 2 weeks of my life just creating the most shit animations ever. Something simple as a walk cycle took me ages, and some YouTube tutorials. Shotgun and hammer.
NVIDIA accelerated
gosh.
computing starts with DGX, the world's AI.
And now I can transform between the two. I did this by having two weapons on the same blueprint,
I'm
and whenever they
happy
spawn in, they
my
instantly attach. Then I just play a quick
classes didn't
transform
include
animation
3D. I
to
suck at
detach
Blender.
or reattach the weapons.
Yeah,
And it's
my
actually
classes
really
didn't
smooth to
include
transform
3D
between the two,
either.
which is
I was just messing
sick.
around on
For
the
the art
computer.
direction, I changed
And I
the
was like,
sky
oh, wait,
color
this
for
is cool.
aesthetic, and
And
I
like, you
really
could-
like the PS2
so I
retro
just, like,
style a lot of modern
created that
games are
gun.
going towards. So I copied a
I
retro
don't know, we
shader
kinda
that
just
adds
did
some
what we
pixelation
wanted
and copied a
in
cell
my
shading.
class.
Cell shading is where light just becomes flat colors, which a lot of older games used, but we will continue the art later. I also created a very bare
in my
bones
art design
inventory
class was
system so that I can
watch
add more
YouTube
weapons
videos
and
and
other
play
stuff
fake
later on. With the help of the
Wishing
documentation and
Simulator.
some tutorials from Unreal themselves, it only took me 3 weeks to figure out. For the actual item pickups, I tried to replicate the item drop thing that all Souls games have. I achieved it by using this rocket thruster pack that I got for free. I still have no clue about particle systems, but I played around with the values until I got this. Then I just added a sphere in the middle. Now I can assign an item with a picture to it, and the two somehow actually work flawlessly. Back to the weapon, I added a simple aim for the shotgun and made a projectile actor. I decided to go with projectile shooting instead of hit scans, which is just shooting out a line to simulate a bullet. I did this because Unreal makes it super easy to make just about anything a projectile. So I gave it a short range shot and a medium range shot.
I know a game that kind of looks just like
For the hammer form, I just made a simple
here.
light and heavy attack combo. Now the transform attacks, I made them look a
I don't
little
know the name
cool
of the
by
game,
making
though.
a helicopter
My
swing
studio
and
was
a
pretty
double
small,
bump.
so
Also
the
allowed
only
them
thing
to
we
be
could do was
comboed with the
physical
normal
media,
attacks.
like painting and drawing.
I went by those really fast, even though that took me like a month of coding and animating. I recorded a lot of the process, but my 6-year-old gaming laptop decided to just stop, and I lost a bunch of recordings. So back up your files. Anyways, I decided to make a new PC, which took a while, but now we can continue.
Wow, this PC looks really
A
nice.
huge problem I noticed was the dodge. In all Souls games, you can actually move while in the dodge animation, allowing you to
I've been
switch
fighting
directions
tooth
quickly.
and nail
However, my
with
dodge
my
paralyzed
computer
me in the direction I
since
was
yesterday.
facing, and to switch, I would have to stop and move my player to change directions. I knew the problem had something to do with
That's why
root
this is
motion,
debut
which is
day
where the
2.
position of the player is controlled
Because
by
yesterday
the
I
animation
literally
itself.
could not
So I tried to
stream at
turn
all
this on and off at certain parts, but
'cause of my
that never
computer.
really worked. I tried to add an artificial force mimicking on what the player is inputting, which did absolutely nothing. But after 3 days, I finally found it. This single setting that fixed everything. I could now smoothly dodge anywhere I wanted. This also helped me with another
That's
feature
kind
where I
of
can
the
briefly
Elden Ring
aim my
role a little
weapon
bit.
attack. Now with most of the player mechanics done, we need to actually use them. Some of my favorite enemies to fight in Souls games were humanoid enemies, and upon defeating them, you could steal their armor or weapons.
Man.
I decided to follow the AI tutorials by Ali, who is the absolute GOAT. I started with
Till this day, with Elden Ring, I still have yet to beat Radahn. I think my best achievement with Elden Ring was like, I kind of soloed all the bosses, and like, I probably had to fight each boss like 3 times before I just like completely destroyed them. I have yet to beat Radahn though. I think Radahn and like the moon, like that moon girl. Hold on, I'm gonna try to find a picture of her real quick. It was like the girl who could like throw moons at you. Elden Ring boss. Okay. Her right here. Renala, Queen of the Full Moon. This was the last boss I left off on with Elden Ring. Besides Radahn. I just couldn't. Actually, I don't think I beat her. Actually. I can't remember. It's either between her or Radahn. I came so close to beating Radahn.
very basic functionality, having a patrolling state, and if it sees me, it starts chasing me. Souls enemies are pretty simple. Once they see you, they chase you, and if they get close enough, they play an animation. But then you realize they're not so simple. They can strafe around you, they give off hit reactions and have their own, along with their many different states. So I wanted to achieve this basic functionality first, then expand upon it and make it more boss-like. The problem right now is every enemy also needs their own animations. Hey, you remember those shitty animations at the start of the video? So I gave the enemy the Dragon Slayer with the animations, just for now. For strafing, the enemy has points around the player that they can then strafe to, and attack again. Now hit reactions are a little more difficult. We first need a damage system. Luckily Ali got us again. We need a damage system so that when the player does hit the enemy, they actually take damage. Now how do we hit an enemy? When our weapon touches the enemy, it tells our player like, yo, I just touched something. Then if that something is an enemy,
I'm getting
we
so
deal
much
damage
game
to that
knowledge
enemy.
from this.
I then also added hit reactions for the shotgun bullets with the same idea. For the enemy to counter these, I coded it to where when it starts strafing, it can hold a block stance, negating a lot of the damage. Now the enemy actually giving hit reactions, we can do a Control-C, Control-V from the player, but now checking if what the enemy hit is a player. And after binding the player's health to this progress bar, we can actually take damage. But so far the enemy only has this one short range attack. So I animated a long range slash, and if the player gets within a certain distance, it does the long range attack. With a lot of the combat mechanics starting to form, I needed to create a lock-on. So I did it by launching a spear cast that's detecting for enemies. We set our rotation to face it. And this is something about Souls games, is when you're not locked onto an enemy, your player's direction is controlled by the input, like a keyboard, joystick, toaster. Then if you are, it's controlled by what the camera is focused on, which is why the player starts strafing. But then if you start sprinting, it goes back to input controlled. Lucky for us, Unreal Engine already has these features made. We just need to know when to turn it on or off. I set up a strafe blend space and the rest was pretty simple.
It kind of looks like 1v1.lol, that like Fortnite game.
Welcome to Lords. All the awesomeness of...
Though we can't really see the enemy right now. And this was something I didn't
like the
realize
robots.
until now. Is if you get closer to an enemy, camera actually tilts down and moves up at the same time. But it's so perfectly synced, it's hard to notice. This would be pretty hard to implement, but there's a function that does most of the work for us. A map range. The value will be the distance from us to the enemy. We can give it 2 clamped values, and based on those, it will output another 2 clamped values. Then with some testing, I got it working.
Like, it's hard, but like, it's not really that hard. I don't know.
You may have noticed though that the right hand
I kind of
is doing
cheated though. I
everything.
kind of
So what
used
could the
the
left
YouTube
hand do?
videos to get the best builds.
Let me explain. Parrying is very cool and is a part
So
of
I guess
all
I
Souls
kinda
games.
cheated.
It's satisfying and takes some skill, but that's not even the best part. It's the...
Oh yeah.
I decided that to parry, you would have to punch the attacks. So I animated a quick punch, and every time we get hit, it checks if the player is parrying while within the parry window. Then the enemy goes into this staggered state, so that it can get... I created a 2-person animation where the player stabs the enemy, looks down, then shoots. And after a couple
Shotgun
days
to
of
the
coding,
chest
we can
at
now...
point blank range. Imagine.
So that's about all I've gotten done in the past 5 months. I know this is barely a Souls-like, as I still haven't gotten to sound design, particles, and the main thing, level design, but once I started this project, I was just constantly learning new things, and my sense of time was pretty much non-existent. Only until about recently, I realized it had been over 6 months since I posted a video, which is crazy. Also, thank you to anyone who watched my previous video and subscribed. I know going from playing Souls-like to making them is kinda weird, but I do feel like learning how to make them showed how much I love these games. If anyone is thinking about getting into game dev but thinks they don't have enough time or it's just too hard, just try it out. The skills you gain from it be priceless, and game dev itself is cool and fun as shit. Finally, this video was obviously for entertainment purposes, but I do want to do more in-depth game dev videos and how I edit my videos. If you have any suggestions for this game, let me know. And thanks for watching.
Wow, that was a good video. That was good.
Switch to Chrome to load your favorite
Here are all
sites
the
fast,
ads.
so you can browse with ease.
Wow, these are so good.
Fast,
So good
safe,
ads. We love
yours.
these, don't we?